It's a simple song, maybe one of the simplest ever to hit #1. The lyrics are straightforward. A man tells a woman what he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be a tiger. Tigers play too rough. He doesn't want to be a lion. Lions aren't the kind you love and own. He just wants to be her plaything, her cuddly, lovable companion. It's sweet. It's charming. It came out in 1957, a time when its singer was the most dangerous man in music. He was Elvis the Pelvis, the boy who snarled his lip and shook his hips and made parents lock their doors. But this song wasn't dangerous, it was the opposite. It was a calculated piece of softness designed to sell a movie and make him palatable to the masses who were still scared of him. And it worked! The song was a monster hit. It became one of his most recognizable tunes. But behind the simple, innocent song lies a strange story. A story about politics, paranoia, and the absolute control one man had over the world's biggest star. The story isn't about the lyrics. The lyrics are perfect. It's about the title. The original title was slightly different from the one we know today, and the reason for that tiny change is rooted in a story that starts more than 50 years earlier, with the President of the United States and a hunting trip gone wrong. To understand why a simple song title became a problem, you have to understand the man pulling the strings. His name was Colonel Tom Parker. He wasn't a real colonel, his name wasn't even Tom Parker. He was Andreas van Kuyk, an illegal immigrant from the Netherlands, and he was perhaps the most brilliant and ruthless manager in entertainment history. The Colonel saw Elvis Presley not just as a singer, but as a product, a brand. And his job was to protect that brand at all costs. By 1957, the Elvis brand was on fire. He had exploded onto the scene a year earlier with Heartbreak Hotel. He was a cultural atom bomb. The kids loved him. The establishment feared him. Preachers condemned him from the pulpit. His critics called his music a menace to society. When he appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, the cameras famously showed him only from the waist up, afraid his gyrating hips would corrupt the youth of America. The Colonel saw all of this. He understood the controversy was good for business, up to a point. It made Elvis exciting, but it could also limit his appeal. The Colonel didn't want Elvis to just be a hero to teenagers. He wanted him to be an American icon. He wanted him to be loved by everyone. Moms, dads, grandmas, everyone. That's where the real money was. That's how you build an empire that lasts. So he started to soften the image. He put Elvis in the army, he put him in movies. The movies were key. They were formulaic, family-friendly musicals. They presented a tamer version of Elvis. He was still the handsome rebel, but he was a rebel with a heart of gold. He always got the girl and sang a few songs along the way. These films were incredibly successful, and they made Elvis a household name in a way that just records couldn't. This particular song was written for his second movie, Loving You. The songwriters, Cal Mann and Bernie Lowe, were professional hitmakers. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were tasked with writing a song for a scene where Elvis sings to his love interest. They came up with a perfect little pop song. It was catchy, simple, and fit the sanitized image the Colonel was building. The original title they submitted was Clean and Direct. It perfectly matched the central lyric of the chorus. It was a name that everyone from a child to an adult would instantly understand. The Colonel received the song, he liked the melody, he liked the lyrics, but he saw a problem with the title. It was a problem nobody else would have ever seen. It was a problem born from his unique brand of business savvy and deep-seated political awareness. Colonel Parker was a staunch Democrat. He was deeply involved in politics, not as a public figure, but as a backroom operator. He understood how political affiliations could shape public perception. He believed, quite rightly, that the Elvis brand needed to be completely apolitical. Elvis was for everyone, Republicans and Democrats alike. He should not endorse candidates. He should not take political stands. He was an entertainer. His only job was to make people happy and, in turn, make the Colonel a lot of money. Any association with a political party, no matter how small or indirect, was a risk. It was a potential crack in the foundation of the empire. And that's where the song's original title became a landmine in the Colonel's eyes. The title contained a word that, to him, was inextricably linked to one of the most famous Republican presidents in American history. The story goes back to 1902. President Theodore Roosevelt was on a hunting trip in Mississippi. Roosevelt was a famous outdoorsman and hunter. His reputation was built on his rugged, masculine image. But on this trip, the hunting was poor. His hosts, wanting to ensure the president didn't go home empty-handed, cornered and tied a black bear to a tree for him to shoot. Roosevelt arrived at the scene. He saw the helpless, tethered animal. He refused to shoot it. He found it unsportsmanlike. The story of the president's compassionate refusal got out. A political cartoonist named Clifford Berryman drew a famous cartoon depicting the scene, showing Roosevelt turning his back on the small bear cub. The cartoon was a sensation. Inspired by the cartoon, a New York toy maker named Morris Mithdom created a stuffed bear cub. He wrote to President Roosevelt and asked for permission to call his new invention Teddy's Bear, in honor of the president. Roosevelt, likely amused, agreed. The toy was an overnight success. It became a phenomenon. The teddy bear became one of the most beloved toys in the world, and there was the Colonel's problem. The toy's name was not just a name. It was a direct historical tribute to Theodore Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was not just any president. He was a Republican icon. His face was on Mount Rushmore. He was a symbol of the Republican Party's strength and legacy. So, in 1957, when the Colonel saw the proposed title for Elvis's new song, his mind didn't just see a cute, cuddly toy. He saw a political symbol. He saw the Republican Party. He saw a potential headache. He imagined newspaper columnists making a connection. Elvis Presley, King of Rock and Roll, sings ode to Republican mascot. It sounds absurd now. It probably sounded absurd to some people then. But the Colonel did not deal in probabilities. He dealt in certainties. He was a master of risk management, and this to him was an unnecessary risk. Why alienate any potential Democratic fans? Why give anyone a reason to attach a political label to his star? Elvis was bigger than politics. He was a unifying force. He was a product for the entire American market, not just half of it. The Colonel's paranoia, or perhaps his business genius, kicked in. He couldn't change the lyrics. The key line was already perfect. The whole song was built around it. Changing the lyrics would mean ruining the song. But he could change the title. He could subtly de-emphasize the problematic word. His solution was simple, almost bureaucratic. It was a masterpiece of subtle manipulation. He didn't remove the word, he just demoted it. He instructed the record label to add parentheses. The original title, a straightforward declaration, was now altered. The most memorable part of the title was now enclosed in brackets, as if it were an afterthought, a subtitle. It was a tiny change on paper, but in the world of branding and marketing, it was a calculated move. It was the Colonel's way of creating a small amount of distance between the song and the toy named after a Republican president. It was an insurance policy against a controversy that probably never would have happened. And so, the song was released, it shot to #1 on the charts, it was a massive success in the movie and on the radio. And absolutely no one noticed the parentheses, no one wrote articles connecting Elvis to the political legacy of Teddy Roosevelt. The controversy the Colonel had so carefully preempted never materialized. His plan had worked perfectly. Of course, there is a deep irony to the whole story. The Colonel's attempt to downplay the name was a complete failure in the long run. No one ever calls the song by its technically correct, fragmented title. Everyone calls it by the very name he was worried about. The parentheses are forgotten, a footnote in music history. The song is known, loved, and remembered by the two words that came from a president's compassion on a hunting trip. The song's legacy became intertwined with the very image the Colonel feared. Fans hearing the song began throwing stuffed bears onto the stage at Elvis's concerts. It became a tradition. He would accumulate mountains of them. The cuddly toy became a symbol of his softer side, a counterpoint to the leather-clad rebel. He embraced it. The brand, which Parker tried to keep politically sterile, ended up absorbing the symbol and making it its own. This small, almost forgotten story tells you everything you need to know about the Elvis Presley phenomenon. It wasn't just about a talented kid from Tupelo with a great voice and a magnetic stage presence. It was about a meticulous, behind-the-scenes operation run by a man who thought of everything. A man who worried about the political implications of a stuffed animal. A man who used punctuation as a tool for brand management. It shows the tightrope they were walking. On one side was the raw, rebellious energy that made Elvis a star. On the other was the need to be a safe commercial product for mainstream America. Every decision, down to the title of a simple love song, was a calculated step on that rope. The change was controversial only in the mind of one man. It was a secret controversy, a battle fought and won in an office before the public ever heard a single note. But it reveals the hidden machinery behind the magic of the King of Rock and Roll. It reminds us that even the most innocent-seeming pop songs can have stories buried inside them. Stories of business, fear, and the strange intersection of music, toys, and presidential politics. The song, of course, was Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear.